Welcome back to Backspace Academy. In this lecture, we'll have a look at the security, identity, and compliance services of AWS. Now, this is a very important category of AWS, and as such, there is a very broad selection of products that are available. Once we've done that, we'll finish up with a hands-on lab using the Identity and Access Management service. AWS Artifact is an online portal that provides access to AWS security and compliance documentation. And that documentation can be readily available when needed for auditing and compliance purposes. AWS Certificate Manager issues SSL certificates for HTTPS communication with your website. It integrates with AWS services such as Route 53 and CloudFront. And the certificates that are provisioned through AWS Certificate Manager are completely free. Amazon Cloud Directory is a cloud-based directory service that can have hierarchies of data in multiple dimensions, unlike conventional LDAP-based directory services that can only have a single hierarchy. AWS Directory Service is a fully managed Microsoft Active Directory service in the AWS cloud. AWS Cloud HSM is a dedicated hardware security module in the AWS cloud. This allows you to achieve corporate and regulatory compliance while at the same time greatly reducing your costs over using your own HSM in your own infrastructure. Amazon Cognito provides sign-in and sign-up capability for your web and mobile applications. You can also integrate that sign-up process with external OAuth providers such as Google and Facebook, and also SAML2 providers as well. AWS Identity and Access Management, or IAM for short, allows you to manage user access to your AWS services and resources in your account. Users and groups of users have individual permissions that allow or deny access to your resources. AWS Organizations provides policy-based management for multiple AWS accounts. This is great for large organizations that have multiple accounts and they want to manage those and the users that use those accounts centrally. Amazon Inspector is an automated security assessment service. It can help to identify vulnerabilities or areas of improvement within your AWS account. AWS Key Management Service, or KMS for short, makes it easy to create and control encryption keys for your encrypted data, and it also uses hardware security modules to secure your keys. It's integrated well with AWS services such as Amazon S3, Redshift, and EBS. AWS Shield provides protection against distributed denial of service, or DDoS for short, protection against DDoS attacks. The standard version of AWS Shield is implemented automatically on all AWS accounts. Web Application Firewall, or WAF for short, is a web application firewall that sits in front of your website to provide additional protection against common attacks such as SQL injection and cross-site scripting. It has different sets of rules that can be used for different applications. Now let's have a look at using one of the core AWS security services, Identity and Access Management, or IAM. Now, up until now, we've been logging into our account using the email address and password that we used to create that account. And that is logging in as a root user, and it is not desirable to do that. The reason I say that is that the root user will have access to everything, access to finances, credit card, access to locking people out of that account. And so that is something that cannot be compromised. Otherwise, you're in a lot of trouble. So what we do is that we lock that down. We put a very long password and complicated password on that account. And we can also have multi-factor authentication if we want to go to that next step of locking that down. Once we've locked down our root access, we can create an IAM user. And we can log in as that IAM user, and that IAM user will have permissions specific for what we need to do. And so if we, for whatever reason, need root access, we can still get that if we need to. But we log in for the most part as an IAM user, and that protects our account. So again, we go to services and we look for the IAM service. Now, once we're in there, we can go to users on the left here, and we can create a user by clicking on add user. We'll give that user a name. I'm just going to call it test. That'll be fine. Now, that user can have management console access. Yes, we would like that, but they can also have programmatic access if they're going to be connecting in through a software development kit or connecting in through the command line interface remotely. So we're going to give both of those because it's going to be ourselves that'll be assuming this user. We can put in a custom password there. So I've just put in a password that I'll remember. And we won't worry about changing that password because it's for us, not for someone else. So once we've done that, then we can attach permissions to that user. So we click on Next Permissions. Up the top here, we've got Attach Existing Policies Directly. So AWS have already done the work of writing policies specifically for job functions. So if we click on that, and what we can do is we can select here Administrator Access. And that provides full access to AWS services and resources. But that does not include financial and that sort of secure account management stuff. So we can attach that policy to this user that we've created. So we click on Review, and we can see there we've got a username test, and they've got both programmatic access and management console access, and their permissions are defined in that administrator access. So basically gives you full access to use all of the resources or all of the services. We click on Create User. So that user has now been created, and we can see here we've got an access key and a secret access key. And we can download all of this information. So if we download that now, and we can save that somewhere, and that's our credentials. So when we open it up, that file, it will have information about how we log into the management console. So before we would have been logging in from aws.amazon.com, but now we've got our own sign in link, and yours will be different. And if we click on that now, we will be able to sign in as that IAM user. So you will have your account ID, or if you've created an alias, it will be an alias. Now I've created an alias from my account called backspace-labs, but you will no doubt just have your account ID there. Put in the name of that user that we created. And then we put in the password that we created for that user as well. And if we sign in now, we should be able to get in. And so there you go. We've signed in back to where we were in the AWS Management Console. So now we don't need to use those root user credentials. So what we can do now is we can change those root user credentials. So to do that, we need to log in as the root user. So we go to our account up here. So I'm logged in as test. So I want to sign out and then log in with root access. So I click on sign out, and that'll take me back to the AWS homepage. So if I go back into my account, AWS Management Console, and I get this screen that we had before. Down the bottom here is a link, sign in using root account credentials. So I'm going to click on that. And that's going to get me into my root user. So I just sign in. And there we go, we're signed in now as the root user of the account. So what we can do now is do the same thing again. We go into our account details here, but we go down to My Security Credentials. And what we can do now is that it's going to give us a warning that we're going to be changing the security credentials of the entire account. So that is what we want to do. So we're going to continue to security credentials. And here we can see up the top here is password. and click here to change the password, name or email address of your root access account. So we click on that. And here we can go. So we can update the password. So we click on edit and we can put our current password in and then our new password, which I'm not going to change because I don't want to change it. But I'd advise you to do that and put in a really, really long and complicated password. Use a password generator to do that. And that will help to secure down your AWS account. You can also enable multi-factor authentication. It's a little bit of a long-winded process, but that will give you a little bit more security as well if you want to go down that process. So for now, I don't want to stay in the root user, so I'm going to log out. And next time I log in, I'll use my IAM user. So that's all I need to show you now on creating a IAM user. Going through the course, we're going to learn a lot more about IAM. And if you're going on to do an associate level certification, you'll be an absolute whiz of this by the end of it. You'll be writing policies. You'll be doing a lot more with this. So I'll look forward to seeing you in the next lecture.